And just like that, we are live on the internet. How's it going, Richard Specht?
It is going well. How are you, Eric Lupton?
I am fantastic.
And I am spectacular.
Yep, that's great. I love it.
So how have you been?
I've been fantastic. Life is great. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm healthy and wise. Or at least two of those.
Well, there you go.
So yeah, I think I'm doing good. I've got a birthday party coming up.
Yes, one that I wish I could attend.
I've never done anything like this in my entire life. This is I take that back. I did like the baby version of this for New Year's.
And it was a rousing success.
Yeah, so for New Year's I did a thing. So this is like New Year's 2.0. But we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens.
Well, I mean, the best I can do is live vicariously through the pictures that you will share, but
we will share all the ones we can on Facebook.
Yeah,
yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
That's the promise. Yeah.
And it's this Saturday, right?
It is this Saturday, yeah. So
now what's your actual birthday?
My actual birthday is July 8th.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm just kidding. It's
I know it's
actual birthday is April 19th.
There you go.
So it'll be the following Wednesday.
So you're kind of pre-gaming,
I am. I am. But yeah, it should be good.
So I didn't have any big birthday bash. My birthday, although the whole world celebrated it for some reason.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, everyone celebrated my birthday this past Sunday.
Yeah.
The restaurants we went to all had special menus and everything. It was great.
Yeah, I went across the street to my friend's house and had a meal. Yeah.
Yeah, and people were giving out chocolate bunnies. I don't know what my birthday and bunnies have to do, but
you like chocolate.
So this is the first time, though. I mean, my birthday is April 9th. My birthday's always around Easter, but Samantha asked me, she's like, "Is this the first time your birthday's been on Easter?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And then, of course, being me, I had to go back and check historically, was I correct? And it is the first time my birthday's been on Easter. However, over the next 22 years, my birthday will be on Easter 2 more times.
Oh, look at that.
So 11 years from now, it'll be on my birthday again. And 11 years hence, again, it'll be on my birthday.
Mine has done it once to my knowledge. Now I'm looking it up now because I have to know.
What I did?
Yeah, Easter on April 19th. What years was Easter on April 19th? A lot of them. Hold on. This is thrilling content. Here we go. I'm not just going to do like the dates of all the Easters. That's not helping me.
Well, you could parse through it and figure out which one is, the 19th. I bet you ChatGPT would know.
That's what I should have done. I was just thinking that. Here, this is what I did. Check this out. I'm a genius. All right. Michael, let me share a screen.
I can do that.
Mike has all the power.
So I just search for April 19th and we'll scroll through.
Oh,
so
there you go.
Yeah, in my lifetime.
In your life. So there you go. I think this is the same chart that I used.
So 1980, I missed one. So at 85, so I was 3. As the 8 is probably the one I remember. Wow, look, from 1990 to 2070.
So you're
I'm done.
You're done. Well, hey, we're approaching the singularity, Eric. You never know.
So that makes me realize that I have no idea how this works, because how can it go from like it's every 5 years?
I think, did we lose Eric? Did I lose you? Oh, you froze.
I'm sorry. But yeah, that means I have no idea how this works, because how do we go from it happened in a 5-year gap to an 80-year gap.
Okay, so this is a combination of the Gregorian calendar and the nuances of religion and what is considered, because I actually looked this up because I'm me, and I was like, why is it that I've never had it, and now in the next 22 years it'll be effectively 3 times? And it has to do with, first of all, the date of Easter is directly tied to the Gregorian calendar. And then if you think about the Gregorian calendar itself, it's based around the fact that how we go around the sun, which that period of us actually orbiting around the sun is not an even number, and it's not an exact, it's not a whole number. So the our period of our orbit around the sun is 365.25 days, which is, by the way, why we have a leap year every 4th year, because 0.25 times 4 is a whole. So effectively you're adding an extra day, and it's not even exactly 0.25. So that's the other problem. So that's the solar calendar, right? And then the Gregorian calendar tries its best to link to that solar calendar. But even then it's not exactly right. I'm getting into astrophysics there. We don't need to get into that. But so the Gregorian calendar, which is built around basically trying to reconcile what calendars were before then, which was basically religiously based, and then trying to tie it into something scientific and something mathematically that works for society. So you have this oscillation in the calendar that happens, and that changes every 4 years. So you don't have a steady pattern, because every 4 years we add an extra day, right? Which offsets the calendar. So think about it. If you have a leap year, and then February's got normally has 28 days, but then it has a 29th day, that pushes everything off by a day into the next calendar year. So, and then the location of Easter, which is based on, I forget what the rules for that is.
I can tell you.
It's the moon phases, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, it's a liturgical thing because it has to link up with the Jewish calendar. So it is the first Sunday following the first full moon on or after the vernal equinox.
There you go.
What's the vernal equinox?
The first day of spring. It's usually around March 21st.
Okay.
And scientifically speaking, the vernal equinox is when the Earth and the sun, in which the angle of incidence and the angle of insolation are equal to each other, which is 23.5 degrees, which is why planet-wide we have 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. And it doesn't matter if you're at the equator, or if you're in Florida, or you're in Antarctica, or in the North Pole. Everywhere on Earth gets exactly 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness.
Because what about when they have what about when they have the long nights in Alaska?
Well, so now, okay, so if you look at it in terms of here's the sun. There's the sun, right? So big ball of light, okay? And then here's the Earth. Now, a lot of people think that the sun and the Earth are lined up kind of like straight up, right? They're not. The Earth is actually tilted this way at 23.5 degrees, okay? So as the Earth rotates...
you're saying on that day, it's 12 hours everywhere.
Right, okay, because we are basically lined up at that 23.5 degrees, which means the sun is shining directly on the equator perfectly and in line with the rotation of the Earth. So everywhere on Earth gets exactly the same amount of sunlight, because it's it's actually the second time of the year where that happens, because it happens once in the vernal equinox and the other time on the autumnal equinox. So, so now that's an astronomical phenomenon, not a religious one. However, people did recognize this phenomenon worldwide long before there was any science to back it up. So, I mean, of course, now we know why that happens. But and then the opposite of your equinoxes then would be the solstices, in which you have you're on the opposite end, in which you're basically as far away from that lineup, which is at the tropics. So when the sun lines up with either the Tropic of Capricorn or the Tropic of Cancer. So And then that's when you get your shortest day of the year if you're in the Northern Hemisphere in December, and your longest day of the year in the Southern Hemisphere is in December. And then the longest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere would be on June 21st. And the shortest day of the year in the Southern Hemisphere is June 21st. So in the Southern Hemisphere, they enter winter starting in June, and we enter summer starting in June. So there you go.
And
There's your
one
science.
more wrinkle. Some people, it's Easter this Sunday.
Right. Well, that's Orthodox Easter, right?
And that's the combination of the lunar calendar plus plot cohesion, because they want it to be after Passover.
So there you go. So that would explain why you had a grouping of dates that worked out, and then it just doesn't align again for another 70 years or so. So, but I don't know. Maybe cybernetic Eric will be enjoying.
Maybe.
Dude, I'm convinced you're gonna have like cybernetic implants, and I am on that optimistic side of AI making the difference.
I mean,
And then we all need to network together, and then Skynet takes us all over. But hey, that'll be cool too. And then we'll be the Borg.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Hey, I'll join the collective.
Have you done any cool things with ChatGPT lately?
Dude, I use it all the time. For instance, I was asked to do a keynote address for the Long Island speech pathologists in October at their annual meeting, and they asked me, "Can you give us like a 2-sentence blurb?" And I did not feel like writing it, so I went on ChatGPT and I said, "Write a 2-sentence blurb for a presentation by Rich Specht," and boom, copied, pasted, sent to the email, and I didn't even have to think about it. So. Yeah. I feel like this is like the calculator of our generation.
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
I can see teachers telling kids like, "Oh, you're not gonna always have ChatGPT." Yes, they will. So embrace it. My mom, by the way, is absolutely like aghast at this whole thing. And then I told her I did this. She's like, "But you're such a wonderful writer." And I was like, "I don't care." I was like, "So is ChatGPT." And I was like, "You know what I didn't have to do, Mom? I didn't have to spend 2 hours and get anxious about it and try to find the perfect wording." And it just did it. All without thought or emotion or feeling, just pure, like, oh my God.
Did you see the incredibly complicated poem I had to write?
Oh, the Top Gun one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I commented on it.
But with all the rules that I assigned to it?
Yeah.
So for people who don't follow my Facebook page, which I don't know how are you watching this? It's kind of weird. But I had it write a poem summarizing the plot of Top Gun, but I wanted it to be in rhyming iambic pentameter, which is a difficult and complicated thing to do.
Yep.
And then I wanted it to be an acronistic poem, which means acrostic. Sorry, not acrostic. That's everything. Acrostic poem, which means that the first letter of each line spells out a word or a phrase. And I had it spell out highway to the danger zone. So given this like bizarre number of like variables that it had to weave through, it without a moment of thought spat out exactly what I asked for perfectly. And I was like, oh, this is, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, so there's a thing called a double acrostic poem, where you can do the same thing with the first letter and the last letter. And I asked it to do that. But I asked it for what which should the second letter be, or the second phrase be. The highway to the danger zone is the first phrase. Come up with a Top Gun themed phrase for the second one. And it chose one that didn't have the same number of letters, which means it can't work. And I was like, okay. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. And it broke. Like it spat out something, but it was all wrong. and like the second, like the other set of letters like weren't correct. Like it was just capitalizing in weird places. I broke it. It got real weird. Like it was failing in ways that didn't make sense. and but it didn't know it either. By the way, it was just trying. And
But it
if
didn't.
I didn't know better, like it took me a
It
minute,
did
like, oh,
not.
wait, it's broken. It's not working because it's like here it is. Here's your thing. I asked you guys for. And then I told it I was like, well, this isn't working because, you know, these phrases don't have the same number of letters. Like that can't work. And it's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry. So I think I forget what two phrases is. It was like, well, instead use, you know, Maverick and Goose, and you know, and another phrase with the same number of letters. I forget what it was. But then it was like, yeah, Maverick and Goose, and what was the other phrase, which both have 17 letters. And I looked at them like, and I told her, I was like, Maverick and Goose and this other phrase both have 16 letters. You counted the letters wrong. And it's like, oh, you're right. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And
Well,
no one else
there's-
would catch that but me, by the way.
There's clearly still work to be done.
Yeah. And
Well,
it
did you
was
hear?
interesting.
Did you hear about Chaos GPT?
No.
Okay, so some programmer
Hmm.
basically took the code for ChatGPT and removed the constraints from it and labeled it Chaos GPT, and then told it try to take over the world. And it immediately started compiling things it needed to do and started talking about how it could try to break into the Pentagon's mainframes, acquire nuclear codes, and eliminate and he had to shut it down. Like, it wasted no time in figuring out how it would go about wiping us all out. And it started laying out exactly what it needs to do and how it's going to go about using the internet. And it started to try to actually access those things.
Great.
Yeah. And that was just someone like, hey, this will be fun. Would you like to play global thermonuclear war?
Yeah.
Thank you, Whopper. By the way, that's a deep cut for anyone who's seen the movie War Games. That's what
I got it.
Yeah. So, Chaos GPT. And it was just because someone thought this will be fun for kicks and giggles. You know what would be fun for kicks and giggles, Eric? Destroying the planet.
Well, but he shut it off. What happens to the, you know,
Well,
angry
we all know that,
16-year-old?
that Skynet, when we tried to turn Skynet off, it wiped us out. So I am waiting for Arnold Schwarzenegger to come popping through a portal to come, eliminate the future resistance, which I'm hoping is me. I would be totally down for a killer android showing up at my door to be like, are you Richard Specht? You must be. I'd be honored. Come, end me. That's it. I'm down.
Is it?
But of course, we don't want to destroy the world. We want to save things. We want to save people, right? So,
Right. You know what? I want resistance against
what do you want resistance against?
drowning, water safety, pools and kids.
Yes.
That's not my best work.
No, it was kind of a weak. That was a weak segue for both of us. But
Yeah.
So it is that time of year again. Although I know I've said this to you and out loud many times. It's I almost feel guilty in saying it's that time of year because it's always that time of year.
Right.
If you're on Long Island, people just don't think of drowning in October because you're not really in the water anymore. All the pools here are closed, and Reese drowned the end of October, and it was in our backyard pond.
I mean, my closest friends in water safety all lost their kids in the winter.
I think part of it, honestly, I truly believe that vigilance is less during those times. So I don't think there's a coincidence that you may see it'd be interesting if there were studies, and I don't think there are, if there were studies that were able to link, attentiveness to the lack of attention to it and that false sense of security you have that those water sources are not accessible anymore.
Well, what they do with the diffusion of responsibility, we know about that.
Right. But I there's nothing that's intrinsically linked to that particular that question, that variable set. So, and I don't think there's really no way to measure that anyhow. But, and I also see like there's all these like dead ends when it comes to solving this. Like we joked before we got on that, oh, here we are again talking about this. Must mean we failed up to this point, which we have. I mean, if you want to be honest and you want to be objective, like we failed. It's kind of harsh to say, but it's the truth. Until there's no more drownings, which I'm going to be honest, will never happen. Accidents will always happen, no matter how vigilant you are. But I would like to see like some dent in the numbers, and there's been none. Like overall, there's been none. And so I always feel like if we have times of the year where we say, oh, this is when you need to worry about water safety. I don't know. Does that become a detriment in and of itself? Because now this is the only time we're thinking about it. And then the times where we're not thinking about it actually become more that like the danger is heightened. I don't know.
I guess you look at it like Earth Day, like Earth Day is the day to like spotlight this issue, but we also recognize that it's important to care about the environment all the time, even though on this particular day we're making special mention of it. So I feel like Water Safety Month or Water Safety Day is for that purpose.
And conversely, if you're like, well, because one thing I'll hear on Earth Day is people like, well, why isn't it Earth Day every day? Or how about this? People always talk about how nice people are on Christmas Day. Like, why can't it be Christmas every day? Because if it were Christmas every day, it wouldn't be Christmas anymore. That it's something we need to consider. And I think you start looking at human nature and the thing I keep coming back to is that you can't be vigilant all the time. You can't.
Right.
There's no such thing as 100% supervision. And this is where I always come back to with the education part of it, is that if 100% supervision were possible, then there'd be no drownings ever. Because yes, if I had to choose the number one way to prevent drownings, the most fail-safe way, it would be having 100% attention. Absolutely. Fine. And with someone capable of performing the rescue, right? So yes, but that's not life. So, and that fallacy that we can be attentive all the time is just, it's wrong. And that's never going to change. And the perception that supervision is all you need, I still think is the most detrimental thing to water safety, is that people think that all you need to do is supervise and, problem solved. And you go to any beach and the parents like, this drives me crazy. You see the kids out in the water and the parents are on their phones talking and the kids are out in the ocean. And if you ask them, why aren't you watching the kids? Well, that's what the lifeguards do. No, lifeguards aren't there to watch your kids. They're there to assess the situation and try to prevent a tragedy, but they're not there watching your child. The only person who's going to watch your child is you. So this, talk about diffusion of responsibility, right? That's voluntary. Willful, like here you go. And almost every parent I see at the beach does that, or at the pools. And that's that myth that the supervision will save you, and it won't. So
if supervision won't save you, Rich, what will?
It is layers of protection, Eric.
Wow.
We need to have layers of protection, which are, and it's these disparate layers that you need to have in conjunction with each other that give you the best. And it's not foolproof either, right? Because again, not 100. Nothing's ever, no child is drown proof. No child. And why? Because you can't. It's chaos. It's the law of entropy. It's the second law of thermodynamics. But we can do our best to overcome it. And that's energy. So here, let's get into some science. The only thing that overcomes entropy, which is chaos, is energy. And there is a finite amount of energy in the universe, which means we have to apply that energy to the things we want to protect our kids. yes, supervision is part of that, but supervision is not perfect. And again, every parent I've ever spoken to, if you've ever uttered the words, "Where is so and so?" Congratulations, you are as much a failure as I am. And yes, I'm a failure. I am. So that hit me hard last night. For some reason, every once in a while, it just hits me. I lost a child. I failed. I'm a failure as a parent. There's no other objective way to say it. So I'm an absolute failure. I lost one of my kids, and it was a failure to supervise. It was a miscommunication. My friend thought Reese was with me. I thought he was with him. The end. But it's interesting. People always have to assign a blame. And I find it interesting that we want to assign the blame to a person as opposed to a problem. And to me, the problem was not my friend, not me. It was the ignorance of the situation and not knowing all those layers. And to me, the missing layer for Reese was swim lessons, because I did have the other layers, right? I did have a self-locking, self-latching fence around my yard, but not around the pond. It wasn't around the pond. It was around the yard. Again, that's more ignorance. And the gate did self-latch and self-close, and he couldn't open it. He couldn't manipulate it. It was above his height. But I had propped it open to be able to move the furniture. We had alarms on our doors. Again, he was already outside, so the alarm is moot. I had supervision, at least what I thought was supervision, except the breakdown in that supervision because of a miscommunication. So what was left? Well, I didn't have the fence around the body of water, right? Which I should have. And if I was in that situation now, I would absolutely have it. If I had the pond, I don't have one anymore. And then the other missing thing there was that Reese did not have swim lessons. He had no familiarity with the water at all, other than the times he was in the water with me, either in floaties or swimmies, which gave him a false sense of security in the water. And he went into that 18 inches of water and he drowned. And why? Because he did not know he knew nothing about it. And had I known, I could have started him in swim lessons. And I'm not going to get into the debate of versus traditional versus self-rescue or whatever. It would be a different story. And, Melina had swim lessons and she started at 3 months old. And I know at 22 months old, which was the age that Reese was when he passed away, Melina would have just stood up. And she would have done what she was instructed to do and gotten herself out of that situation. Or been in a position where by the time I got to her, I could have saved her. And so that didn't exist. So 2 of those layers were non-existent, and those 2 layers cost me my son. And it's that. And until we dispel that myth that you have to watch your kids, protect your kids, we're going to change it.
I mean, one could have also installed an alarm in the pool, or in the pond rather,
Right.
A floating alarm that went off when the water was disturbed, which aren't great, but they're better than nothing. And there was a product back then called Safety Turtle that is a wrist worn sensor, like a watch, and if it gets wet, then the alarm goes off. You theoretically could have.
They still make the Safety Turtle, don't they?
They do not. No, they are currently discontinued. Yeah,
that's too bad.
It is too bad, and maybe somebody will come along and change that. Maybe some lifesaver will rectify that situation.
Yeah, maybe the Respect Life Foundation, in conjunction with Lifesaver Pool Fences, could get a grant to maybe make something like that.
We may or may not be talking to the people there, but we'll see what happens.
Well, there you go. I think it's, I think anything you can add to those layers, right? Like, what's better than a 3-layer cake? A 5-layer cake.
Yeah.
So,
what's better than a 3 cheese grilled cheese? A 5 cheese grilled cheese.
Right. It's just, I don't know. It always amazes me, especially when this is the time of year now where I start going to schools and speaking to the kids about water safety. But you know who comes up to me after my water safety presentations? The teachers. And they come up to me in shock. Like, I didn't know. You're like, I didn't even think of that. I'm like, of course you didn't. Because you know what killed my son? Ignorance. Ignorance killed my boy. So plain and simple. And until we change that, nothing's going to change. And that is why the numbers haven't changed at all. And I will die on that hill. That, I hear other groups like, oh, the numbers. I know why the numbers haven't changed, because we haven't changed the perception.
Yep.
And until you do that, until you educate the population as a whole and they see it, you're not going to get a change. And by the way, in the places where they have done that education, you don't have the drowning numbers that we do. So, you look to Australia, you look to Germany, although all of Europe basically, though Germany leads it by far. But Germany has compulsory water safety education. And they have compulsory swim lessons. And so does, by the way, Australia. I mean, go figure. So, but then you get into this area where, we can't legislate people's lives, and you run into political issues. And it's like, oh, come on. Right? I mean, I heard a great argument, and I don't ever want to tie gun safety and stuff to water safety, but I heard an argument where someone was talking about their right to bear arms and everything, and I don't want to get into that. I mean, I'm a gun owner myself, but I heard the counter argument, which I was like, this is a brilliant counter argument. What about your right to live? When does one right supersede the other? Like, to me, the most sacred right you have is the right to be alive. Like, all other rights are a derivative of that. So I want the right for my child to be alive, for your child to be alive. And if they're between the ages of 1 and 4, the most likely thing to take their lives is water. Yet people don't see that. And I've seen statistics. So from Pool Safely, they actually do have a statistic where they surveyed parents, and their statistic was 39% of parents were asked what's the most important thing to. So it was a poll. What's the most important thing to protect your kids? And 39% of them said supervision. That was the number one answer. So if we were like playing, Family Feud, the number one answer is supervision. And what I find interesting is that people think there's a number one answer. That's the problem. There is no number one answer. So, if I have a layer cake and it's made up of chocolate and vanilla and strawberry, and I ask you what flavor it is, you're not going to say it's chocolate.
The part I is.
What?
The part that I'm eating is, but yeah.
Yeah, hey, there may be one you like better than another, and that's fine. Right. But you still have to, you still have to address those layers, and you have to go through them to get to your chocolate, right? So you still have to be aware of their existence.
Yep, you're right.
So, and again, people aren't aware. Education is the key. I will die on that hill. And yeah, we're in that time of year where people are nearer and in around the water more often. So be vigilant, people. But you know what? Not just vigilant. Get those layers. Get a fence put around your pool. It's not other people. It's other people until it's you. So, and this goes out to my neighbors who I know are still vacillating over whether or not to get a pool fence. Please get a fence. I'm offering it to you for free. There you go. Please get the fence. So,
all right.
And that is me and my hill.
Well, next week we'll go through each of the layers and talk about them in detail.
I think we should.
That's a great idea.
Pros and cons of each, and pros and cons.
Pros and cons. I can do that.
And why? I think that plays more to Eric why you need these layers, right? And then go back to your cake. You don't like the strawberry, but you got to go through it to get to your chocolate.
Yep.
And you know what? Someone else will like the strawberry. So.
Yep. So we can talk about why all the layers are flawed except pool fence, and that'll be great. I'm just kidding. They have issues. So.
Wow.
All right. I know Rich has a hard stop that we're late to.
Yeah, no, it's all right. As long as I have to be there at 11. So Lori has her college admissions guidance meeting. So we are meeting with her, which blows my mind that now my middle daughter is looking at college and Abby's going to college next year. I don't know where the time goes, dude. I don't know where it goes. But here I am. Okay. So, and Eric froze again. No. It's just me.
You're back.
Oh, there we go. It was weird.
All right, guys.
By the way, if I had taken a screenshot, that was such a bad shot of you.
Oh, was it? Oh.
It was bad. Oh well. All right. So next week, next week. Well, yes, I will be around.
Sounds good.
So same time next week,
Same time next week.
and we'll talk about all the layers,
All layers of protection.
pros and cons.
All right.
But why
I know.
safety fencing is the best.
Stay cool, my friends. Bye.
Bye.